I fell into a billionaire's life by accident, but what I found was heartbreaking love. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stumbled into that hotel lobby, the opulence around me almost suffocating. Crystal chandeliers dripped with light, and the floors shimmered like starlit water. I was just a girl from a one-bedroom apartment, wearing shoes that pinched my toes, wondering if I belonged. I had come to help my best friend, Mia, with her new job. She needed a favor to deliver something to a client. I assumed it would be just another boring errand. Little did I know that the tall, handsome stranger with stormy eyes, standing under the gilded staircase, would flip my world upside down. His name was Ethan Blackwood. The name alone sent shockwaves through me. Everyone whispered about him, a billionaire with a reputation that sparkled like his wristwatch. But as he watched me with an intensity that ignited my very soul, I couldn't help but feel something stir inside, something raw and real. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, each thump demanding attention. "Do you always crash into people?" he said with a teasing smile, and I was instantly captivated. His voice was rich, like dark chocolate melting on my tongue. Before I could respond, I was busy mentally chastising myself for how out of place I felt. My worn-out backpack was awkward against his tailored suit, and I could smell his cologne mix of cedarwood and something else entirely intoxicating. I felt seen for the first time, like a diamond in the rough, and it terrified me. Mia had warned me about men like him. Powerful, dangerous. But I couldn't shake the connection, the electricity that hummed in the air between us. What if this was just a moment? I stumbled back, eager to flee the heat rising in my cheeks, but he stepped closer, as if sensing my fear. "What's your name?" "Lila," I whispered, my voice trembling. He chuckled softly, his eyes dark with intrigue. Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. Before I could react, a sudden commotion shattered our bubble. A woman, elegantly dressed and all too poised, burst into the room, shouting his name. My heart sank at the look of dread flashing across Ethan's face. "Where have you been? We need to talk." The tension coiling around us snapped. I stepped back, retreating into the background, feeling like a ghost. The scene crackled with unsaid words, shadows of secrets looming just out of reach. My chest tightened. What had I walked into? I didn't just stumble into a billionaire's life, I had stepped into chaos. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a whirlwind of confusion and emotion. Each time I closed my eyes, I was haunted by the resonance of Ethan's voice and the unsettling intrusion of the woman who had stormed into our moment. I had thought my life was already complicated, but it was nothing compared to the tangled web of affections and obligations that seemed to envelop Ethan. Mia sensed the shift in me. Over coffee, her eyes narrowed with concern. "You can't get tangled up in this, Lila. There are worlds apart inside this life." I nodded, but her words felt hollow against the vivid mental snapshot of Ethan's smirk and the warmth of his gaze. One evening, while staring out my apartment window at the twinkling lights across the city, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan, simple yet electrifying. "Can we talk? Meet me at the cafe." My heart raced. What was he even thinking? I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, constantly aware of the danger, but unable to resist the draw. I arrived 10 minutes early, nerves twisting in my stomach. The cafe was cozy, its soft lighting creating an atmosphere of intimacy. I took a deep breath and tried to calm the storm inside me, but Ethan's entrance turned my breath into a gasp. He was casual, dressed down in jeans and a fitted gray sweater, but the aura of his strength and power was undeniable. The moment his eyes found mine, I was a decaying leaf drawn to the warmth of the sun. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice lowering. There was a gravity to his words, a weight that suggested he was carrying burdens I couldn't fathom. I offered a tentative smile, unsure of what he had to say. "I owe you an apology," he started, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. "I didn't mean for you to witness that." He sighed, his brow furrowing as if he were struggling with a secret he couldn't release. It's just complicated. My life is complicated that we all have our complications, I murmured, trying to bridge the gap of uncertainty that seemed to stretch between us. I leaned forward, sensing that this was my chance to truly understand him. But you seem to carry a heavier load. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes before his expression shifted, masking some deep sadness. It's a lot to explain, Lila. I don't want to pull you into my chaos too late for that. I interrupted with a teasing smile, wanting to lighten the weight in the air. Ethan chuckled, albeit weakly. But seriously, Ethan, you don't have to shield me. Just be honest. My voice gained a thread of confidence, a thread that seemed to vibrate with the truth I needed to hear. He hesitated, and I could feel every heartbeat passing like a drumroll. There are rumors circulating, people watching my every move, he confessed, and guilt twisted in my gut. Some of them are true, and I'm afraid it will put you in danger. The woman you saw is part of my past, but she's a reminder of the people who won't ever let me go. My breath quickened as the layers of his life unfolded before me. Danger? Financial troubles, he explained, his voice lowered to a whisper. I've made enemies. The vulnerability hanging in the air almost shattered my resolve. I didn't want you to get hurt. Then why did you invite me here? His gaze held mine, and time slowed, the world around us fading. Because you make all Tishi motion to the stuffiness of the K feel lighter. You're a reckless escape. I never thought I'd need. My heart ached with hope, filling the cracks of my confusion. Then let's face it together. I'm not afraid of complications, Ethan. I want to understand you. Before he could respond, a crash echoed from the entrance. A woman stumbled in, her expression frantic as she scanned the cafe. My pulse quickened as I recognized her. It was the same woman from the hotel. She locked eyes with Ethan, shock mingling with despair in her once elegant demeanor. Ethan, we need to leave. Now. They found us. A chill enveloped my spine, intertwining with the warmth that had just ignited within me. My world teetered on the edge of our shared moment, and I wondered if I had been drawn too close to a fire that could consume me. Whole. The cafe's air, once infused with soft coffee scents and fading jazz, instantly shifted into something suffocating and cold. Time warped, stretching painfully as I watched confusion, anger, and something nearer to dread flicker across Ethan's face when the woman called out his name. Lila. Ethan's voice was both a whisper and a warning, laced with urgency. You need to go. I stood there, frozen, the allure of his world crashing around me like the sound of the woman's entrance. What the hell is going on? I barely managed, my heart racing, an involuntary surge of fear mingling with curiosity. Please, he said, grappling for control as he stood up, his stature somehow more formidable despite the chaos. Just trust me. He'll explain everything, just not here. The woman's eyes darted back toward the entrance, her breath coming in shudders. They'll be here any moment. Don't make me go back out there. Ethan's gaze flicked between her and me, and I could see the internal conflict tearing him apart. Lila, I need you to go, he insisted. It's not safe for you, not safe? You think I care about my safety when I just learned that I'm standing in the middle of something dangerous? My words fell out in a rush, fueled by a mixture of fear and determination. This was my chance, my moment to step beyond the fragile bubble I'd been encased in since meeting him. The woman turned to me, her distress painted across her features. You don't understand. He's involved with people who won't hesitate to hurt you to keep their secrets buried. Ethan took a step closer to me, his hand reaching out, fingers brushing the back of my wrist in a fleeting gesture that sent shockwaves through my body. You have to believe me, Lila. This is a mess that I walked into, a mess I thought I could handle alone. I never wanted you to be a part of it. But I already am, I said, desperation lacing my words as I attempted to bridge the chasm between us. Ethan, I can't walk away now. You can't just send me away. In that frantic moment, the shadows of the cafe shifted, thickening ominously as if anticipating the turmoil about to explode. The woman glanced nervously at the door again, her hands trembling. We have to go, Ethan. If they see her before she could finish, the door burst open, slamming against the wall with a force that echoed like gunfire. A tall figure stepped in, silhouetted against the light, a sense of assured menace radiating from him. I caught a glimpse of steely eyes surveying the room, filled with a predatory interest that sent a chill down my spine. Ethan's expression changed, hardening, and he moved instinctively in front of me, shielding me as much as he could. "Stay behind me," he whispered, the protective tone imbued with fervor. The man's eyes flicked over us, a smirk breaking across his lips that felt like ice spreading through my veins. Ethan, Ethan, you didn't really think you could outrun us, did you? Not when you've made such a mess of things." My heart thrummed, a rhythm of growing panic. I had entered a world far beyond my comprehension lines were drawn, and I could sense the darkness lingering just beyond them. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my attempt at bravery faltering against the weight of danger poised in the room. Ethan shot me a heated glance, a mixture of regret and determination, and then addressed the man standing too much at ease with impending chaos. "This isn't what you think. I'm not the enemy here. Let's finish this without involving more people. Oh, but it's too late for that, isn't it?" The man's laugh dripped with mockery, his gaze narrowing as he shifted his attention to me, a glimmer of something unsettling dancing in his eyes. "Still chasing after the butterflies, Ethan? Seems you've picked a rather delicate one this time. What do you want?" I interjected, my voice stronger than I felt. The man leaned closer, a wicked smile on his face as his gaze bore into mine. "You, sweetheart. You're at the center of all this pretty chaos. But don't worry, they'll make sure you're taken care of one way or another." Fear coiled tightly around my heart, suffocating any trace of hope. I felt the world constrict around me as Ethan's protective instinct intensified, his presence radiating a mixture of urgency and despair. "Lila, I won't let him harm you." But as the man stepped forward, the looming threat enveloped me, reality crashing in as every hard-earned moment we had shared hung in the balance. With the weight of fear heavy in the air, I wondered just how closely I had danced with fate, and the shocking thought struck me: was I truly ready to face whatever darkness surrounded Ethan, or would I lose the pieces of myself I had only just begun to reclaim? The chaotic energy in the cafe felt like a live wire, crackling with tension that threatened to burn everything in its path. I could see the flicker of panic in Ethan's eyes as the predator approached, his confidence an unsettling reminder of the power imbalance we faced. "Ethan," I whispered, trying to gather strength from somewhere deep inside. "What is happening? Who is he really?" The man's smirk only widened as he looked from me back to Ethan. "Oh, sweet Lila, you're digging your own grave with questions like that. But don't worry. Ethan here will keep you safe for now." He turned his attention back to Ethan, his eyes glittering with threat. "Think of it as a game of chess, my dear boy. But remember, the queen is always the first to go." Before I could process his words, Ethan moved faster than I could follow. Grabbing my wrist, he pulled me toward the nearest exit, the other woman following close behind. "We need to get out," he urged, urgency lacing his tone. But the door swung shut before we could reach it. The man had called for reinforcements. The realization weighed heavily in the air, twisting a new knot of fear in my stomach. We were trapped. "Ethan," I said, panic rising in my chest as I glanced back at him. "What do we do?" His eyes met mine, a whirlwind of emotions warring behind the calm facade he tried to maintain. He hesitated, the weight of his world crashing down around us both. "Just stay close. I won't let anything happen to you," I promised. In that moment, the woman who had been with us stepped forward, breaking the tension. "Listen to me," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "My name is Clara. What you need to know is there are people in this city who'll do anything to get to Ethan. You have to follow my lead if you want both of you to make it out." I barely registered her words through the rush of adrenaline in my veins, focusing instead on Ethan, whose expression shifted from determined to fearful. "Clara, I won't drag her into this. She doesn't deserve this kind of danger. Or maybe she deserves the truth," Clara countered, her gaze unyielding. "Are you willing to risk everything because you're afraid?" A deep breath filled my lungs, wrestling with the looming prospect of what lay ahead. "No one asked me if I wanted to get involved, Ethan," I said, wrestling with my frustration. "But I'm here now." Before we could settle into any form of clarity, the door was thrown open again, a surge of newcomers flooding into the cafe. Their presence filled the space with an oppressive weight. They were all there for one thing, and I understood it clearly. "Us." "Get down," Clara shouted, pushing me behind a table just as chairs flew across the room. I crouched low, my heart pounding, as chaos erupted. My mind raced with thoughts of protection, of the safety I had taken for granted before this moment shattered my reality. Ethan's body moved sharply through the chaos, the fierce grace of a guardian as he flung himself toward me, locking an arm around my waist and pulling me in tighter. "Stay with me, Lila," he shouted above the noise. But even in that precarious moment, flickers of warmth ignited between us, kindled by the fighting spirit he unknowingly instilled within me. I found myself clinging to him, the heat of his body anchoring me amidst the terror swirling all around us. "Calm down." Clara was barking orders, trying to herd scattering patrons toward the exits while keeping an eye on the advancing figures. "We've got to stick together. Move to the back." I felt a surge of adrenaline and made the split-second decision to follow Clara. "Ethan, come on," I urged, tugging his arm, my heart racing as if it knew the stakes, as if it understood the urgency of escaping this nightmare. We pushed through the chaos toward the rear of the cafe, Clara pushing ahead to sweep open a door we hadn't noticed before, a narrow emergency exit. The sharpness of the world hit me as we stumbled outside, the brightness of day contrasting sharply with the frantic shadows of the cafe. Outside, we drove into a labyrinth of alleyways, Clara leading the way as I tried to hold on to as much of Ethan as I could. The adrenaline in my veins fueled my determination. I was right next to him, close enough to see the raw vulnerability etched into his features. "Where are we going?" I gasped, panting with the effort. "To a safe house," Clara replied, glancing back at us, her expression serious yet fierce. "We just need to lay low for a bit." I took a moment to comprehend how my life had spiraled into this whirlwind. Just days ago, I was lost in my own world, devoid of clarity. Now I was embroiled in a danger I couldn't understand, with allies I barely knew, and the remnants of my old life fading rapidly from view. As we turned a corner, weaving deeper into the heart of the city, I could feel Ethan's breath at my side, his urgency never relenting. "Lila," he started, halting when Clara raised her hand for silence. But the momentary calm shattered when Clara abruptly stopped, her eyes hardening. "We're not alone," she whispered fiercely, pointing down the street just as figures began to emerge. Time seemed to freeze as the realization settled over us, and my blood ran cold. "Are they?" I didn't finish before the figures revealed themselves, each bearing the same predatory intensity as the man in the cafe. Ethan's grip tightened on my arm, and I fought to grapple with my racing thoughts, my jaw clenching at the choice laid before me. Trust him or try to run. Each moment felt stretched, hyper-real, as if the entire world had slowed for the menacing confrontation ahead. I held my breath, as every decision I had made led to this very moment, facing an uncertain future, my heart torn between fear and unyielding hope. In my gut, the truth became clearer. In this life with Ethan, somehow, heartbreak felt inevitable, and just as that thought roared in my mind, a shocking voice broke through the silence. "Ethan, I thought you'd be gone by now." It was another familiar face, stepping forward from the shadows, the words hanging heavy in the air like a loaded gun. "Carter?" Ethan's voice trembled with a mixture of fury and disbelief. "What are you doing here?" As the pieces began to shift beneath my feet, the key to our survival felt more fragile than ever, the puzzles within puzzles reaching a breaking point. And then my heart sank, realizing nothing about this was ever going to be simple again. The air crackled with tension as Carter stepped into our line of sight, and I felt the ground beneath my feet shift alarmingly. The ease with which he navigated the chaos sent ripples of confusion through me. Why was he here? And who exactly was he to Ethan? "Carter, we don't have time for this." Ethan snapped, his voice taut with frustration. "You need to leave. What would be the fun in that?" Carter retorted, a smirk playing on his lips that felt dangerously misplaced given the situation. "I always had a sick fascination with how your little rescue operation would play out, Ethan. And look, here we are." Fear clenched at my heart, and I caught a glimpse of the panic in Ethan's eyes, which felt as if they were screaming for an escape route. I was caught in the crossfire of a battle I hardly understood, drowning in a whirlwind of emotions that only got murkier with each passing second. "Step aside, Carter," Clara demanded, stepping forward and placing herself protectively in front of us. "This isn't a game anymore, though. Clara, You should know by now that life is nothing but a game, he replied, tilting his head with an unsettling glint in his eyes, like a cat playing with its prey. You should be thanking me. I'm here to save you all from him. He gestured toward Ethan with a flourish, as if revealing a particularly juicy secret. My mind struggled to process the threat level. What do you mean from him? I blurted out, my voice shaky with confusion and dread. Ethan shot me a warning glance, but it only stoked the fire in my chest. Tell me the truth, Ethan. My voice rang out, reverberating in the charged atmosphere. What's really going on? Lila, this is not the time. Ethan gritted through clenched teeth, his focus still on Carter. But the fear I sensed in him only made me push harder, desperate to grasp the reality crumbling around us. But it is the time. Carter leaned in, as if confiding a secret just between us. You see, Ethan here has made quite a few enemies. And while he may want to protect you, I'd hate for you to end up like the others, wiping your memory clean, erasing every moment you've shared just to keep you out of his mess. But a flash of something cold passed through Ethan's gaze, and I suddenly felt more vulnerable than ever. My breath came in quick bursts, the realization of being entangled in a story darker than I had ever imagined finally hitting me. No, I believe that's exactly what you're up to, Carter. Ethan spat, and tension crackled even more fiercely as the two faced off. Clara remained poised, her body tense, as if preparing to launch into action at any moment. You really think you can still protect her? Carter continued, his smirk unyielding. You think you're the hero? This isn't a fairy tale. Lilith's just another pawn in your twisted game. The word pawn hit me like a bullet. I recoiled, suddenly feeling like a participant in a drama I hadn't willingly signed up for. I wanted, even needed, to understand what was happening, yet the fear gnawing at me silenced many of my questions. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed down the street as more figures emerged, more than I could count, advancing with a purpose that sent shivers down my spine. We have to move, Clara shouted, her voice piercing through the tension. Ethan grabbed my hand again, his grip trembling with urgency, and Clara led the way into an adjacent alley, offering a flash of hope amidst the uncertainty. There's a route we can take to a more fortified location, but we need to hurry. As I hurried alongside Ethan, my mind raced. I felt his presence solid against mine, yet the gaps of unspoken words loomed larger than ever. Could he really protect me? And if so, from whom? As we turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of panic on Clara's face, and it set off a cold wave through me. Ethan, this isn't the right way. But before she could finish her thought, the alley opened up into a wide courtyard swarming with darkness. The figures were everywhere now, closing in like an inescapable tide. I could hear my heart hammering, the rhythm drowning out everything else, and just when I thought there was no escape, a piercing scream erupted from somewhere ahead, sending chills sliding down my spine. Lila. It was the familiar cry of desperation, the voice of someone I didn't expect. No, it can't be. Mom, I gasped, feeling the ground shift beneath me. Ethan's gaze snapped towards me, confusion and fear mingling in his eyes as he tried to comprehend my sudden realization. My mother was here, caught in a web of danger with me. The very idea shattered my heart into a million pieces, but even amidst the looming chaos, I felt an unexpected surge of strength. Stay with me, Ethan urged, the urgency in his tone undeniable. Where is she? I croaked, panic clawing at my throat. But as I turned back towards the menacing figures, something darker flickered in the shadows. An unmistakable connection pulled me towards the heart of the chaos, my mother's cry echoing through the infinite depths of dread that surrounded us. The tension thickened as I prepared to face yet another shocking revelation. Whatever was about to unfold, I could not let fear dictate my path. But the danger ahead seemed more like a familiar nightmare waiting to swallow me whole. That I felt Ethan's warmth at my side, but knew something deeper hung between us. Threads spun from heartbreak and uncharted love. Would we ever be able to escape this harrowing game? Would I even have the chance to discover the truth of Ethan's world? And just as those thoughts spiraled, a different voice shot through the air, silencing everything. Lila. A shadowy figure emerged from the chaos, calling to me. With every ounce of desperation and panic surged through my heart again as the final threads of the game began to unravel. The woman stepped into the dim light, her face obscured, but that voice sliced through the tension, a haunting familiarity that reached deep into my core. Lila. I took a step forward, heart racing, almost on instinct. Mom. Ethan's grip tightened around my arm, pulling me back in an effort to shield me. But with every breath, I felt the ground shake beneath my resolve. I couldn't lose her again, not like before. Lila, you have to run. My mother shouted, her voice wavering but firm. There was an urgency in her tone that I could hardly understand, a mix of fear and something else, a determination that made me feel even more conflicted. Carter motioned as if summoning the shadows, a wicked grin dancing on his lips. You see how easily your little family is torn apart, Ethan? Shut up. Ethan barked, but I could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. In that instant, I realized our fight was more than the immediate danger. It was a war of unfathomable stakes, a battle for hearts and souls, tethered by our love and fear. I turned back to my mother, desperately searching her face for answers. What's happening? Why are you here? You should be safe. But the answer I sought was drowned out by the frantic thrumming of chaos swirling around me. A swarm of figures continued their advance, and each step they took felt like the fabric of my world was fraying, our ties unraveling amidst the looming darkness. Lila? My mother cried again, pure desperation in her eyes. You don't understand. You need to believe in yourself. You have power, you just don't know how to wield it yet. Her words struck me like lightning, surging through my veins. I didn't understand what she meant, but I felt its weight, a challenge inheritance that had been passed down, threading through generations of women with strength hidden beneath the surface. Suddenly, amid the roiling tension, I felt something stir within me, a flicker of courage, buried deep but yearning to emerge. I met Ethan's gaze, searching for his unwavering resolve, for that piece of him that could assure me we would survive whatever storm was upon us. We won't leave her, I declared, voice steady despite the fear clawing at my mind. Ethan hesitated, a mixture of admiration and alarm in his expression. Lila, we have to get you out. No, she's right, Clara chimed in, determination filling her voice. If we're going to fight, we fight together. We're not abandoning anyone. Before the words had even settled in the air, Carter laughed, a sound raw with amusement and malice. And how do you propose to take on this multitude? With courage? Your little band of misfits? I felt the pulse of my heart quicken, the challenge slamming into me like a warped truth. No, I paused, gathering the pieces of my scattered thoughts, drawing from every lingering memory of love and strength wrapped around me like a warm embrace. With love and strength we didn't know we had. Carter's expression darkened, and I could see the challenge taking root in his mind, growing into something monstrous as he calculated his next move. The figures shifted, closing ranks, and suddenly my mother was pushing through, towards me. Lila, you need to trust yourself. They seek to tear us apart, but know you are more powerful than you think. In that moment of connecting with her gaze, I could almost feel the legacy of women who had fought for love and freedom stretching back behind us, filling me with a sense of purpose. With a clarity I had never experienced before, I turned back to Ethan and Clara, my voice steadier than before. If we stick together, we can find a way to stop them. I won't let them tear us apart again. A rumble resonated beneath our feet as movement surged through the horde surrounding us. I could see the fear skitter across Ethan's face mingled with the spark of determination igniting within me. We stand together no matter what, I declared, feeling a sense of unity solidifying around us. But before we could strategize further, an unexpected roar resounded from behind the ranks of shadowed figures. The crowd split momentarily, revealing a new threat. Advancing rapidly, a large vehicle tearing its way through the debris and chaos. Ethan's eyes widened, disbelief dancing across his features as he shouted over the din. What the hell is that? Carter grinned, triumphant, as realization seeped into the air like poison. Ah, you didn't think it would be that easy, did you? Welcome to the real game, dear Ethan. As the vehicle skidded to a halt, its door swung open, and a figure stepped out, cloaked in shadows yet twistedly familiar. Time slowed, held breathless by the weight of revelation. Lila. The voice was recognizable, and fear clamored at my heart as recognition washed over me like icy water. A well of emotions surged, and I knew in an instant whatever lay ahead would rip apart the seams of my understanding of family and love, challenging every belief I had ever held. Not again, I murmured, a spark of dread igniting as shock gripped me like a vice, and the world around me shifted once more, looming with possibilities dark and heavy. I was teetering on the edge, and the truth I had sought was about to unfold in ways I could never have imagined. The chaos around me rippled like a dark tide, and for a moment, I was suspended in disbelief. The figure emerging from the vehicle shifted into focus, revealing not just a face, but a memory wrapped in confusion and heartache. My heart plummeted further into despair as the unmistakable eyes of Julian, my father, the very man I thought had been lost to the shadows of my past, bore into mine. "Lila," he said, voice thick with a mixture of regret and yearning that sent tremors through me. "I didn't want it to be like this. Why are you here?" I gasped, the storm in my chest churning with questions that clawed at my throat. "You left us. You abandoned us. I had no choice." His tone was urgent, desperate as he stepped forward, breaking through the thick tension that separated us. With Ethan and Clara standing protectively by my side, I fought against the impulse to retreat. "I thought you were gone forever." The words tangled in my throat. "I thought you were dead." "That's what they wanted you to believe," he replied, his sorrow written vividly across his face. I was hidden away, forced to watch from the darkness. "But I'm here now, Lila. We can still fight." Carter's laughter echoed around us, a chilling sound that punctured the fragile moment. "Oh, how sweet. A family reunion in the midst of chaos. But tell me, Julian, just how do you plan to protect them now? Look around, your daughter has already chosen her path, and it's hopeless." But his taunts barely registered through the throbbing fear and confusion in my chest. "You should have returned sooner," I shouted at Julian, not caring if my voice quivered with the weight of suppressed emotions. "You don't understand what we've been through. You don't know what it means to want someone only to lose them." The question spun through my mind like a whirlwind, grief and anger blending into a painful haze. "Why now? What do you even want from me? From us? There isn't time, Lila," he shouted back, urgency slicing through his melancholy. "You need to harness your power. They are coming for you specifically, something Carter isn't aware of yet." Ethan squeezed my arm, his eyes flickering between Julian and me, uncertainty dancing in their depths. "What are you talking about? What are you hiding?" "I promise I'll explain everything," Julian said, voice steadier now, like a beacon cutting through the rising storm. "But you need to trust me just this once." The figures around us shifted restlessly, and the using shadows grew heavier on my heart. I remembered my mother's words about power and strength. But that familiar sense of assurance faltered, battered by the sudden revelations hitting me from every angle. Clara, however, broke through the weight of tension. "Lila, whatever he's done, we need to stay focused," she urged me, pulling me slightly to the side. "We can't get distracted. We have to find a way to fight while we still can." But there was a chasm growing inside of me, an endless abyss filled with questions. As I looked back at my father, the man who had once been a hero in my youthful imagination, now standing among shadows, I felt torn between the desire to reconnect and the instinct to protect whatever family I had built with Ethan and Clara. "Lila, you need to choose," Julian pressed, sincere but desperate. "The only way to move forward is to understand the truth of who you are and what you are capable of. You have a legacy to uphold." That a sudden sense of betrayal washed over me, a realization dawning harshly. "You've known all along. You've known about this, about me," I whispered, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. "You let me search for answers that you had all along." No. His voice broke, rawness piercing through. "You were never meant to bear this burden on your own. They manipulated everything, and I swore I would protect you, keep you safe. But I failed." With a heavy heart, I turned away from him, refusing to let the grief of his admission wash over me like a tide threatening to drown my resolve. I focused on Ethan and Clara, the quiet strength of their presence grounding me amidst the chaos swirling within. Carter, seemingly reveled in our struggle, stepped forward. How deliciously tragic. Their little family is in shambles, and now dear old Dad is back to ruin it even more. The ground beneath us trembled. Was it the weight of our emotions, or something far more sinister? The figures by Carter stirred, inching closer as shadows shifted ominously under the brightening moonlight, readying themselves to charge as panic threatened to consume us. Ethan grasped my hand tightly. "Whatever happens, we face it together," he insisted, and in his gaze I found a flicker of hope, a string that tethered me back to the present. But just then, amidst the fluid motion of the figures, a sudden flash of light erupted, illuminating the darkness with a fervor so intense it felt like the sun had burst through. I shielded my eyes, and when I opened them, everything had shifted. Carter's expression was no longer one of confidence, but wariness. "What have you done?" he hissed, glaring at Julian, who stood defiantly. And it was then I realized, without fully processing my own power yet, I might have just awakened something deep within the chaos, of force far more formidable than we had ever anticipated. As I stood at the edge of understanding, the possibilities looming ahead felt both exhilarating and dangerous. But before I could grasp what was to unfold, a chilling sound broke through. The vehicle that had brought Julian started to rumble again, and I could sense an impending crisis too near at hand. "Lila," a voice shouted from the vehicle, laced with urgency. "We can't hold them off much longer. You have to decide now." My heart raced as the weight of responsibility pressed down like an anchor. And just like that, I knew the path before me was filled with treacherous turns and uncertain revelations. I could feel it in my bones. The next moment would change everything. But as the shocking secrets began to unfold before me, a glimmer of hope intermingled with betrayal. One question lodged in my mind. Would we be able to stand together against whatever storm awaited us? Or was this the beginning of the end? The clamoring chaos swirled around me like a tempest, and in that moment of uncertainty, I felt the weight of my father's choices crash against the fragile bits of hope I had built with Ethan and Clara. The vehicle that had brought Julian still hummed ominously, a pulse in the surrounding darkness that echoed the thudding of my heart. "Lila, you have to embrace what you are," Julian insisted, his eyes neither pleading nor commanding, just raw with a yearning I barely comprehended. "This is your moment." But how could I embrace something shrouded in layers of betrayal? "What do you mean, my moment?" I asked, choking on the air thick with fear and anticipation. "How can any of this be viewed as positive?" Carter's smirk twisted into a grimace, as though my questions were all but confirming the defeat he so desperately sought to avoid. "Ah, isn't this charming?" he taunted, his hands gesturing theatrically. "You were just a voyeur in your own story, Lila. A pawn in a game you don't even understand." My breath hitching in my chest, I could feel the ground beneath draw tight. Clara's hand gripped my shoulder, steadying me through the turmoil. "Lila," she said with a fierce look, "we need to focus. Whatever power this is, you can't let him distract you. We can break free of this if you fight." Ethan stepped closer, casting a wary glance at my father. "What do you mean by the truth of who she is?" he pressed, urgency threading through his voice. "Julian, you can't just drop these bombshells and expect us to believe you." Julian's shoulders sagged under the weight of our doubts. "Lila, there's so much you don't know. You're part of something greater than yourself. A legacy." He hesitated, gaze flitting to the shadows that surrounded us, cautious of the lurking danger. "Your mother, she didn't want this for you, but it's the truth." Mouth dry, I fell into silence. Born into this chaos, molded by choices I had not made. "Why should I trust you?" I murmured, taking a step back, heartache clawing at the remnants of hope inside me. "I can't expect forgiveness for my past mistakes," he said, a tremor breaking through his stolen composure. "But trust is vital now. If we're to survive, we must share our knowledge, the powers of our bloodline, the strength of our heritage. We've fought against darkness for so long. Is that your justification?" I couldn't help but shout, anger surging through my veins. Hiding away, orchestrating games? Was my childhood a lie? "Not a lie, protection," Julian countered, eyes blazing with emotion. "When this is over, you'll understand why it was necessary. Just believe in yourself." Yet doubt spun a web of uncertainty around my heart. In the heat of that exchange, a glimmer of strength flared. Buried deep within was a power I had felt in dreams, but never dared to acknowledge. Perhaps it was time to break free of others' shadows. But as the thought solidified, a sound echoed back through the vehicle, a persistent thud against the metal, urgent and demanding, cutting through the static tension. "Lila, decide now," the voice yelled, barely a whisper over the crumbling brokenness of our world. You're the key. Suddenly, shadows darted closer, menacing and with purpose. I forced myself to face Julian's pleading eyes once more, the clamor of uncertainty fading just slightly behind the insistence of survival. Can you protect them? Can you protect us? He regarded me with a mixture of hope and desperation. We can do this together. Hurry. Clara cried, breaking the spell. We need to act. They won't wait for us to figure this out. At that moment, overwhelming adrenaline pulsed through me, a vivid recall of the day I discovered I wasn't quite ordinary. For the first time, I could see the vague outline of my power beginning to surface like a barely contained flame, flickering but fierce. What if I chose to let it burn brightly, immature and reckless but alive? I'm ready, I said, surprised by the coherence of my own voice, astonished as it broke the chaos around us. Abruptly, energy surged through me, my pulse harmonizing with the essence of the night. I called upon whatever lay within, feeling it stretch beyond the borders of my soul as brilliance lit the darkness. Carter's haughty facade shattered to reveal fear if I was beginning to awaken. Then everything was about to unravel. No, he shrieked, retreating a step as shadows spun to block my path, gravel crunching beneath my feet. But I was no longer waiting. With one forceful thought, I steeled myself into the moment and conjured the brilliance that ignited at the core of my being. A flash erupted, blinding in its ethereal clarity, dispelling the cacophony of looming dread around us. And then, just like that, a sharp crack shattered the silence, reverberating against the rawness of burgeoning power. The vehicle was enveloped in an unsettling vibrato that sent ripples of knots through my stomach. In that moment, the air turned electric, not just a storm brewing, but an awakening of something more profound. As the shadows recoiled, a surge of realization gripped me harder than before, threatening to plunge me into an unfathomable abyss. I could sense an accusation brewing, the understanding that something too large was at stake, not just the fight against Carter, but the ultimate truth about my existence. What have you awakened, Lila? Carter spat with venom, the confidence fading from his voice. You've just dug a grave for everyone you care about. That a sudden chilling realization gripped my heart. A flash of images surged through my mind's eye, none of them good. As I braced myself against the current of growing chaos, I knew we were standing on the precipice. I felt the quality of desperation seep into my bones as shadows lurked around us. New truths awaited, longing to shatter the world as I knew it. But the real question whispered through the silence. Could I withstand the roar of unforgiving destiny that had summoned me here, more powerful than I imagined, tangled in a family legacy that was anything but benign? The answer loomed before me, haunting and unyielding, as the world converged on the brink of an unspeakable storm. The flicker of light from my awakening faded as quickly as it had surged, leaving me teetering on that unsteady precipice of power and fear. Shadows danced menacingly, sentinels of a darkness that had long clung to my bloodline, proud in their pursuit of the past. You don't understand what you've done. Carter's voice was a jagged blade in the silence. But just beneath that urgency, I heard a tremor that spoke to my growing hope. A chink in his armor worth exploring. Clara and Ethan moved instinctively closer, each seeking to channel strength from the other, and then me. You have to embrace the storm, Lila? Clara cried out, her expression something between fierce and terrified, urging me onward. Her unwavering faith, even amidst the chaos, breathed life into the sparks of power still swirling within me. Julian stood resolved, but uncertainty ebbed beneath his confidence, casting shadows in the depths of his eyes. It's true, the past can't be rewritten, but the future lies in your hands, he murmured, a hint of desperation lacing his words. A heartbeat of stillness fell over the moment like a fragile web spun over the abyss. I took a breath, filling my lungs with the scent of impending storms and electric potential. We can harness this, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else, as if saying it would birth the reality I desired. But as quickly as hope pooled in my chest, doubt seeped in like an old friend. What if the shadows weren't simply my enemies? What if they were reflections of myself, my heritage? My own family had woven a tapestry of danger, and I was supposed to navigate the threads without tearing it apart. The world around us shifted with the sound of a low growl, a distinct surrender to gravity that sent chills darting down my spine. In response, the shadows surged, eager to reclaim their dominion. A flicker of insight pierced through the veil of turbulence encircling us. Deep down, part of me recognized that the worst was far from over. "Lila, listen to me." Carter's voice jerked my attention back. "What you woke isn't just your power. It's a Biacona flare in the dark. And they're drawn to it." Ethan stepped forward, determination etched across his features. "We won't lose you," he staunchly declared, fingers grasping mine tightly, as if he could tether me to him amidst the approaching maelstrom. His unwavering resolve was a lifeline, an anchor in the rising tide of chaos. But then, a new sound erupted around us, the low hum of urgency behind charging footsteps, a thrumming note in the darkness that promised more than mere shadows. "Lila," a familiar voice called, breaking through the gloom with a warmth that startled me. That voice, this time my heart both soared and sank. It was Margot, my estranged sister, her figure emerging like a mirage through the swirling shadows. Together, we had navigated feuds and heartache, had been forged in the fires of unremarkable family pain. Yet this time, she appeared different, hardened yet alive with the same flickering flame I had just begun to recognize in myself. "Margot," I called, excitement and trepidation tumbling together in a heady mix. "What are you doing here?" Recognition flickered in her eyes, but swiftly morphed into urgency. "I came to find you," she said breathlessly, standing shoulder to shoulder as shadows shifted ominously behind her. "You're in danger, and I can help, but we need to leave, now." Panic flickered through me, and I turned to the others. "What if it's a trap?" I muttered, the fear pulling taut across my heart like a string, ready to snap. Margot shook her head emphatically. "I swear, Lila, I'm on your side. They know about you, about the power you hold, and they won't stop until they have it." The gravity of her words sank in, and suddenly, I understood their chilling implications. Me awakening was not only a birth of power, but an open invitation for old enemies to close in. The shadows thickened, growling around us, the tumult echoing louder and louder as if they had answered my sister's declaration. "Lila," Clara shouted above the cacophony, gripping my hand tighter. "We can't stay here. If Margot says it's dangerous, we have to trust her." But a part of me hesitated, caught anew in the convoluted threads of family betrayals and uncertainty. With every heartbeat, the chaos grew outside, shadows bleeding with intent, as my deepest fears collided with newfound hopes. "Do we run into the unknown?" I questioned, glancing back and forth between the urgent faces of my friends and the family I had nearly lost. Before I could decide, a searing pain erupted in my chest, sharp enough to draw the breath from my lungs. Gasping, I realized the energy I had unleashed was becoming sentient, a force beyond control, throbbing like a wild heartbeat against my ribcage. It demanded to be listened to be acknowledged. But before I could explain, the shadows lunged as if emboldened by my internal war, a swirl of darkness barreling toward us like a suffocating wave. I stumbled back, the panic threatening to swallow me whole. "Lila," Ethan cried out, a sudden desperation brewing in his voice as he shielded me with his body. The choice stretched out ahead of me, but in that potent moment, I felt an unquenchable bond igniting within, a thread of courage pulled taut amidst the tempest. No longer just a pawn, I was the keeper of my fate, and a choice crystallized in my mind. I needed to harness whatever power was awakening within me. Yet the truth surged forward like an unwelcome tide, crashing against the walls of my hesitance. Had I truly grasped what it meant to unleash this storm? As shadows dashed closer, I didn't know if I could contain what had been awakened. "Lila, now?" Margot's voice cut like a blade, even as darkness swept around us like a shroud. "Together," Clara urged, bracing the moment. And then, my choice lay before me: embrace the storm and risk everything, or retreat forever from the legacy of my family. The decision pulsed against the chaos, leaving us on the precipice of choice between order and devastation. Whatever awaited would redefine everything, and for better or worse, we were about to plunge headfirst into the depths of a billion-dollar battle. Time fractured around us, shadows preparing to strike, but as my heart thundered amidst the gathering storm, a flickering light ignited deep within, signaling a reckoning that neither the darkness nor I could escape. I stood frozen amidst the chaos, feeling the tumult of fear and uncertainty wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The shadows surged, creeping toward us like an impending storm, and I felt the whispers of doubt clamoring at the edges of my consciousness. Yet, an unexpected warmth surged, pooling at the bottom of my heart, the kind of strength I had long overlooked. "Trust me," Ethan urged, his grip on my hand grounding me. Clara nodded, her eyes steady with determination, a lifeline tethering me to this chaotic moment. And when I looked at Margot, I saw something profoundly fierce in her expression, a reflection of the power we both carried. The shadows danced menacingly closer, the darkness teeming with shapes and intentions. Yet as I inhaled deeply, I felt the pulse of my own heart steadying, resonating with the truth I had been too afraid to accept. It was time to stop hiding, time to step into my own light. "Lila," Clara's voice broke through my reverie, as urgent as the shadows closing in. "We need to act. Together." I glanced at my sister, Ethan, and Clara, each embodying the strength I thought I lacked. The power within me was no longer just a distant flicker. It was a roaring flame, yearning to escape the confines of fear and uncertainty. "Okay," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "Let's do this." Together. In that moment of unity, a spark ignited within. It surged through me like fire, igniting not just my limbs but the very essence of my being. The energy pulsed harder, humming in resonance with every heartbeat. Shadows collided against the invisible barrier of energy that radiated from me, as if my very spirit had become a shield, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. "Focus, Lila," Margot shouted, and I felt her presence vibrate through the room, amplifying the strength of our family bond. It was a thread woven through generations, carrying the stories of bravery and resilience, defiance against the shadows that wished to claim us. I closed my eyes, envisioning the light within me, an iridescent glow just waiting to shine. "We have power together," I whispered, channeling each word into the energy burgeoning inside me. The shadows roared, wrestling against my force as if they recognized the awakening. My father's voice echoed in my mind, reminding me of the legacy I had to uphold. "Now," I shouted, and with an impulse as fierce as the storm that raged around us, I unleashed everything to light, the depth of my being into the darkness. The darkness shrieked, retreating against the blinding brilliance that separated me from the threats lurking in the shadows. My skin tingled under the influx of energy, pulsating with an exhilarating awareness of my own resolve. Each breath felt like a step toward reclaiming not just my body, but my identity. I was more than the fears that had haunted me. "Together, Lila," Ethan's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering, anchoring me beneath the chaos. With him beside me, aware of every palpable heartbeat, we faced the encroaching shadows together. In tandem, we launched our combined force forward, an ethereal wave that rippled outward like a rock thrown into still water. The shadows rippled and twisted, screaming in frustration as light flooded the space. I opened my eyes to the sight of the shadows dissolving, evaporating into the night air, fragments of fear dispersing with the final glow of our united strength. But even amidst the light, I could see Carter struggling to regain his footing, the defiance in his eyes mingling with rage. "This isn't over, Lila," he shouted, desperation flooding his tone as he staggered back. "You think you've won, but they'll come for you again." And in that moment, realization gripped me, a profound clarity. I wouldn't just take on those threats, I would be ready for them. The shadows could scare me, but they could never own me again. We were changing narratives. It was rewriting my story and igniting my own legacy. Ethan watched me, his admiration shining through the chaos, a silent promise reflected in his gaze. "You're incredible," he whispered, awe and tenderness mingling within him as we pulsed with energy. But I turned to Julian and Margot, who had witnessed my transformation. "What do we do now? How do we continue this fight?" "Now, we fight not just for your past, but for our future," Julian stated, the weight of years pressing into his words but tempered with fierce determination. "Together, we'll protect what matters most." The light around us was fading into twilight, and I felt exhaustion settling into my bones, but I understood now. This was just the beginning. We were bound by trust, blood, and the undeniable will to fight against the shadows that sought to claim us. As we stepped forward, hand in hand, forging a new path illuminated by the glow of hope, I took comfort in knowing we were no longer alone. I carried with me the strength of my past and the love of my family, bolstered by the fierce companionship surrounding me. And in that moment, I felt the shadows shrink, yearning to hide from the brilliance we had ignited together. Whatever comes, we face it together, I declared, without a hint of doubt. Ethan squeezed my hand, ready for whatever we would have to face next, our eyes locked in a vow of solidarity. Behind me, I felt my father and sister, echoing the connection we had forged in the fight against darkness. We moved forward, ready to meet our destiny head-on, a united force against the inevitable storms. As I looked back at the fading shadows, I finally understood the power of love wasn't in avoiding the darkness, but in embracing the light within us, no matter the challenges we faced. And with that, we stepped into the new dawn, each heartbeat resonating with a profound decree: love, light, and family were our greatest shields, and together, we carried the strength to fight whatever was to come. Together, I whispered again as we crossed into the sunlit horizon, where the shadows dared not follow us anymore.